How you doing? John here from Classic Auto Restoration. People are calling me all the time and asking me questions on how to set up the hydraulic lifters on 8 and 12 cylinder motors. So I'm going to do a little video here and I'm going to show everybody how I do it or how I feel it's done properly. This is going to pertain to 36 through 38 or the Cadillac style lifters, which is this little guy right here. Once everything's clean, you're going to have to set up the distance between the valve guide and the lifter bottomed out in its bore. Okay, between the stem of the valve and the lifter bottomed out in its bore. One of the few things we got to watch out for. Some of the Seagraves has a different tappet unit. The original Pierce unit, this is actually a Cadillac lifter, which is shorter, drops down into the body about 200 thousandths. So what we do is we make up a spacer. If you buy brand new lifters, put it on the lifter, and that sets the height back to the factory spec. This is a hydraulic lifter, the second one, and the valves, this replacement lifter fits properly in there at the right height. One of the problems that I've run into with other people's valves, not mine, is if they don't make the valve lengths properly or the head diameter is off, you never can get it set up, or you have to grind so much off the valve that you can't get the specifications in place. So I've actually made up little tiny 50,000 spacers to raise the lifter up, put me within spec of what I can grind. Now, one of the first things that I do is I set the height of all the valves to the head, to the gasket surface of the block. So when I do a valve job, I try to make them as close as I can. What some people do is they just cut the seats, and when they just cut the seats, you have all different heights. That makes it more difficult to set up afterwards. So I get all the heights of the seats fairly close. Then what I do is I use a clamp. This is just a Bridgeport clamp. It's something to compress the valve against the seat so I can properly measure the distance in between the valve stem and the hydraulic lifter unit. So what I do, now that I'm set up, we're going to test this one here. What I do is I take a stack of feeler gauges, and I just start with a particular number. Generally, once you do one or two, you kind of know how close the block is running and how close things are. So I stack up a stack of feeler gauges. I put them in between the valve and the hydraulic lifter, and I set up my little clamp. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to tighten this down, and I'm going to lock it on its seat and set that valve tight against its seat. Some people try to push them down with their thumbs. You can't accurately measure it. And I grab a little tool or something and I pull the feeler gauges out. So that feeler gauge came out, so I know the clearance is more than the stack that I had in there. So now what I start doing is just adding until I get to the point where I can't pull it out. And usually 5 or 10 or 15 thousandths at a whack. When I get close, I cut it down to about 2 thousandths. Now the factory spec on these is from 30 to 70 thousandths from being fully compressed. I never go to the factory specs. I always go as close to the center of that as I can, so I leave a little bit of room for mistakes. Now this keeps coming out, so I just keep adding until I can no longer pull it out. So I'm going to add another 10 thousandths, and we'll see what we come out with. Tighten the valve down tight in the block. I can't pull this one out, so I know I'm already down just barely, so that's about as tight as it gets. So we'll measure this, and this will give me what I'm set up as without any adjustments. So this is 80 thousandths. So this is already 10 thousandths over, but it doesn't even get me close to where I want to be. I want to be somewhere around 50, 55. Okay? So what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to grind the valve, which will lower it, which will set that valve stem deeper and compress the hydraulic unit more and get me close in the spec. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over and we're going to grind this valve.